How can we make volunteerism more accessible to others, in particular youth? And what progress has been made? So that's one thing to talk about, and what still needs attention.
With youth especially is to ask what you're curious about. I think this ties into our other question around, sort of that power sharing piece and that solution seeking piece, but like, well, what are you curious about? And then taking it from there in terms of what that can then sort of lead towards. And I think part of that also comes back to the very first question, just around that opportunity for organizations to educate, the ability to share what the current state of affairs is, and where an organization wants to go, and does that align with what youth especially are feeling? Is all, does that align? Is that something that is also a passion for youth as well? And then building in whatever training and mentoring opportunities are needed, and then engaging people for different perspectives. So that can be youth from with different backgrounds, that could be intergenerational, that can be cross-cultural as well. So I think there's a lot of different ways to engage people and make things more equitable and more accessible to people. But I also think it ties into everything else we talked about as well, that accessibility to technology, accessibility through time management, other expectations that you have individuals have from family and things like that. I know myself, when I connect with people who are interested in volunteering, I have a series of about 8 or 9 questions which are all geared around things like your time availability, your current commitments, things like that, to help people sort of determine what their areas of interest are and what their availability is, and really where do they want to get involved. Because in every group, you're going to have your administrators, those that are fantastic at that end. You're going to have your creative thinkers. You're going to have your doers. And so it's being able to bring all that together in a way that allows people to contribute. And I think one of the first steps is, how do we make programs people want to get involved in, form them in a way that they can actually contribute in whatever way they can.
Some people who do not have the accessibility to these things may not even have the education to know what to do about it, right? So I think one of the first steps we can take as those who are able to do it, and to make it a little bit more equitable, is to start off with taking steps to think about, okay, what can we do to actually make change? Systematic, maybe legislative change. And I think the first step to doing that, like you mentioned about separating, like forming different groups, is about thinking about, like, how can we spread education and how can we reinforce it, right? Because I think one of the most underrated sorts of things required for change is power of education. Because when you're educated about things, you're less likely to make certain mistakes, and you're also more likely to take certain correct actions.
People in the rural outlying townships here in the Waterloo region had a lot of difficulty attending our meetings when we were in person. When we moved to online programming for COVID, we noticed that accessibility had improved for them, but paradoxically, accessibility for folks who don't have access to technology was worsened. So I think it is important to respect diversity and adopt a multitude of approaches when it comes to addressing this complex problem. As an example, let's say that we get together with our team and our youth decide that they'd like to host a meeting featuring a mental health expert to talk about mental health and promoting healthy habits for youth. And now we have to promote that meeting so that the broader community can attend. Perhaps we could have some of our more technologically inclined youth, with all of the necessary support, use industry standard software to create digital promotional material, where folks who may not have access to that technology could in person meet with us to create physical pen and paper posters to put up at common meeting locations like schools or libraries or wherever it is the kids like to hang out nowadays.
Wherever we're able to provide that flexibility is where we'll find accessibility. It's an investment, and it can sometimes even be a risk. I'm sure people who are in those positions, that's kind of what they first think. But for me, one of the proudest moments of being an accessible volunteer position was any time that I was able to let a teenager bring their younger sibling with them, because maybe they were actually a babysitter. And so by letting them bring their 7, 8-year-old sibling with them to the volunteer event. Now they were able to earn their volunteer hours, gain those skills, and still meet the needs of their family. And then on the flip side even was working with refugee volunteers, letting their grandparents come, letting their parents come, letting all sorts of people who we had no idea were coming, come and participate in this event and be okay with it, and find flexible, safe ways to accommodate those needs. Like that's accessibility to me, right? Like out of all the folks who maybe really needed somebody to give them that shot, if I could give someone that shot, I think that's what accessibility is to me. Accessibility is having things done in a variety of languages. It's being aware of different dietary needs. It's being aware of different religious holidays throughout the years and school schedules. Like accessibility is an investment. It does take time, just like relationships, but it's worth its weight in gold. So anybody who's watching this video today, if you are in any position of power to be flexible, I really encourage you to do so, because those are going to be some of your proudest moments as a volunteer manager.
Through our, my personal experience working here with the youth, I find that they say that although there's a lot of programs available for them to participate, that part of, following your passions or engaging their stories or their voices into the table is not happening. So that's why we're very goal oriented, and we want youth voices to take leadership, because those are the ones that can answer our questions, and we need to know what they want so that we can serve them better. And definitely that's something that helped us a lot, because a lot of our youth had mentioned that having programs that allow them to not just learn or get volunteer hours or community involvement hours, but an opportunity for them to embrace who they are, to share their story, and to feel that their story matters. It's very important, and it ended up leading for youth getting more engaged and wanting to do more in the community, because they feel they're acknowledged, not just as a volunteer, but also as a human being.
Try your best to listen and hear these perspectives, because I think a lot of times we have a lot of great ideas, right? And I think our first instinctive is just to get the ideas out there. I'm very biased with this, right? But sometimes it's important to take a step and listen to other perspectives, listen to the others, and listen with the intent to learn something new, right? Because there's a lot of different perspectives and things you don't actually know about, right? But others do. So listen, listen to learn. And then once you learn, it kind of puts you in a better position to accept and move on. And then the second thing I'd like to add is, for acceptability, like understand that everyone is living a completely different life, and you don't know all the different, ins and outs of that life, right? They could be living in a more stressful situation than, you don't know that, right? You don't know about what's going on with their mental health or anything like that. So I think it's important to, one, hear people out, listen to their ideas, whether you agree with them or not, give them a chance, right? You can show them love and help them grow later, but give them a chance, right? And number two, like accept people and understand that they might be living in a more stressful situation. So treat them with care. Because if I were living in a stressful situation, I wouldn't want anyone, being, not kind or mean to me. So just do that. And I think these are steps you can take towards being better people and helping others out.
Listening at the level of where individuals are at. And part of listening is also about relationship building. So if you don't actually build the relationships with young people or figure out ways to build relationships, we can't involve youth in meaningful ways in service or in meaningful engagement in community or in solving problems. So I think relationships and listening and finding ways to connect with youth where they're at, not where we as adult leaders or adult co-leaders want them to be at, I think is a really important thing for myself to continually reflect on. So yeah.
Volunteering is something required for high schoolers. So yes, in that sense, it is accessible to high schoolers. But the core theme of what it means to engage with the community is something that is not accessible to all, because most don't understand why community engagement is important for themselves and for the community. So in that sense, it's not accessible to them at all. And the way to change that would be to engage youth using their passions and interests and engage them to contribute to the community through their interest. There's this quote that says that the only way you can help the world is do something that you love, and by doing that, you're helping the world. So we can connect that into the volunteering and community engagement by engaging youth using their interests rather than just not forcing, but try to understand what the theme of community engagement is to make it accessible to them through their interest.
The passion that all of you are bringing to the table, there's lots of exciting ideas and solutions and perspectives. So that's great for me to hear.
As we conclude, I wanted to thank everyone again for being here, ready to share your wisdom to all of us and all of those people watching this video. It was definitely really helpful even for me to learn new things through this meeting.
No, just thank you, Dia, for being our amazing facilitator today. And once again, it was great to have local, provincial, and national insights talking about youth volunteerism. We also received some feedback from members from the Ontario Volunteer Centre Network. So all of those insights will be collated into our resource packages. So thanks once again, and stay tuned for more great information and conversations that will be started at haltonyouth.com. Thanks, everybody.